I am so excited to be talking to you both today. I'm a huge fan,
Oh my God.
and
Thanks so much.
like as a former TV writer, I have to say like your backstory as a writing duo is so cool. I want to hear what your creative process is like.
Wow. Big question. So we've been doing this since we were 17 years old. We were writing, and directing plays together when we were in high school. And then, we spent about 10 years working on different movie projects. Got to, throw our hat in the ring on some pretty big franchises and Star Trek and everything else. And over that time, I think the process that we developed was really organic, where we take the stories and we work on them together and we talk a lot, and then we start at a certain point. The talk needs to turn into
Well,
words on a page, and
I
then
think tying back to a little bit more,
you're good.
often we will talk about templates first in terms of like, trying to find, I think like, I remember when I was studying Shakespeare, like, being impressed that like, he really only wrote sort of like one original. He wrote like The Tempest, because like it's so hard to like find a plot that works, and everything else Shakespeare did was like, finding sort of pre-existing plots that he would then map new character sort of things onto. So like we will often sort of similarly try to find like what is the sort of plot that we can sort of like,
The
point to.
narrative
Like, is
engine.
it Raiders of the Lost Ark? Is it Empire Strikes Back? Is it
Is it,
Jaws?
is it a
Is it The
quest? Is it a
Terminator?
hunt? Is it a chase? Is it and then once you have that, then the story starts taking critical mass of its own. And at a certain point, you have to stop talking about it, and someone has to, you know, do the hardest part, which is vomit out an outline, which is where you're generating the raw material, and it's so exhausting. But every single brick you're building is like a load-bearing foundational piece that if it doesn't work, you can't build the house. It's like that's the blueprint. And then writing the script, or the teleplay or the screenplay, like that's sort of like the fun part. That you've now got the framework of the house, and now you're decorating the house and filling it with furniture. And
And so, sometimes these things happen very organically and quickly, and sometimes you really got to work at it, and it's five, six, seven, eight, nine, 10 sort of rebreaks of like entirely different versions of an entire storyline where you're like, okay, that didn't work, okay, that doesn't work, that doesn't work, and you're sort of like going through the R&D and sort of crossing things off the list, and kind of going down and figuring out, okay, what is it that we're really trying to say with the story? Like, what is the core of the story, and then what are the things that aren't working about these other iterations? Okay, like, how do we get to that core and tell that in a way that will work with some of these other
and
constraints?
then and then we just divide it up, like the people are walking in the woods, and then they get to a monster, and then after that there's like there's a love scene, and it's like, well, I know what to do with those monsters. Let me do that part. It's okay, well, I'll do the walking part, and then the love scene, you try it, and then I'll try it, and go back and forth and back and forth, and then somewhere it starts to be good. But when it's really working, you don't know who wrote what, and it's just a game of tennis we're playing constantly.
There's also some very strange, sort of mysterious
I'm
parts
sorry,
of
this is a
it.
long
I
answer.
love this. I'm keep going. It's
Strange,
amazing.
mysterious parts. And, we brought some shut up and get on to other questions too. There's a couple of strange, mysterious parts of the process that are really fun also, where like, we talk about like, you're putting your net in the water, where you're like, sometimes it's not like, I mean, yes, your job is,
That's a David Lynch thing, the big fish.
yeah, you're a writer. Your job is, yes, at 9:15 a.m. I will sit down and I will be creative. But also sometimes the idea isn't swimming by you at 9:15 a.m. Sometimes the idea is swimming by you at 7:45 p.m. And if your net is in the water, you're just like, okay, let me think about that one. I know that this character or that character have to get over here. We have to have a really good reason why, whatever. And you're just like, okay, let me just park that problem and I'll put the net in the water. I'm thinking about it. And then something, you're making dinner or you're helping your kid with their homework, whatever, and suddenly the fish swims by. And if the net's in the water, you catch it. So that's a sort of like fun where you're like, aha, these things just happen. And then also on the page, there's some mysterious things that happen as well, where the toolbox on the part of your brain you're using when you're going like this is very different than the toolbox that you're using when you're sort of pacing around talking to each other. So there's also fun discoveries and surprises that come when you're on the page.
So
Sorry.
so cool. Never apologize for that.
To quote Bill Murray in what is it? Groundhog Day. Did you want to talk about the weather?
Yes. What has been the process now moving from season one to season two? You've had two big reveals at the end of each season, but I'm curious about your flow and maybe how season one felt differently than season two.
Well, season one was an exploration, right? Season one, the aspiration was we want to make an 8 hour movie this season. We want it to feel as big and expansive as a Lord of the Rings film would feel. If it was set in this era with these characters in this world. And that also means you are stretching the boundaries of what a television show can contain, right? Like season one, you look at every episode and they're all about 70 minutes. right? They're long, big, meaty episodes that are cramming it all in. I think season two, we were a little more intentional with what's really working. Where is the show really at its strongest? And we were able to make much more, choices. The episodes are shorter, and I think we feel like they have maybe a little more flow, right? Season one was always stretching at the boundaries of what it could be because we were figuring out what it could be. We didn't know there had never been a show of this. And I think every television show, every streaming show has some of the same challenges and opportunities. The first time you're making it, you don't know what it's supposed to look like because you're making it for the first time. But doing it again was almost like a reboot where we could kind of tailor the whole process to serve what we thought was best for the show's creative. So season two was still enormously difficult and a massive undertaking, but it was a little bit less trial and error, and it was a little more kind of driving in the lane that we knew the show had kind of found.
And also, I think like ironing out our own process in terms of some of the writing stuff we just talked to you about. We'd worked on a lot of features before, but this was a TV show, which was a different beast. Or somewhere between a TV show and a film. I mean, and then also the actors. We had to cast so many people. Season one, season two, we had people in their chairs, largely speaking, and we were able to really sort of write the characters with their voices already in our heads. So that's another sort of big step forward you can take season two, and then some of our department heads we'd worked with before, and we sort of knew some of their strengths and style.
Like Charlotte Branstrom, she did our two favorite episodes from season one. And, we really found a tone with her and working with the actors and the performance where we really felt like that's where we want the show to go. And so now she came back and did four and a half episodes. Yeah. And building on that tone of those episodes with her was also part of hopefully honing it. And I think we feel like the show's just kind of hitting its stride.
Yeah. So let me ask you, as showrunners, do you find yourself attached to a favorite character or storyline that you get to create?
Well, they're all our
children,
like
yeah.
children or our family, depending on what metaphor you want to use. I think there's certain characters we love writing for. I have a Galadriel affinity, but I got I love Muriel. I got a Muriel. I like writing for her. I feel like Gandalf and Tom, is like
Yeah,
your bread and
I
butter.
could like if there was anywhere I could go in Middle Earth and actually hang out in some house and find the wall, like a conversation with Tom Bombadil and Gandalf would be, I would sit there all day every day and just eat it up. I love that. Also love the elves in general. I love that, they are allowed to speak in a sort of like heightened register. There's a beauty, there's a wisdom, there's a sort of depth and ancientness, to their thoughts and the way they, sort of think about problems in life.
I think we both love writing for Sauron, and particularly this season, Sauron and Celebrimbor, Charlie Edwards and Charlie Vickers. Those are like 7, 8, 9 minute scenes sometimes where they're just batting the ball back and forth. We feel like we could have just lived in that room. I remember we shot all those scenes in sequence. The show is made like a giant movie. It's all cross-bordered. So I think we shot, in Celebrimbor's workshop like something like 6 weeks straight. And everybody was just like, it was like watching a play, and the success of those scenes. I think we loved writing for them, but watching those actors take those words and do something we could never have imagined with it, truly gratifying.
So cool. All right, last question, since we are awards buzz. I want to know if you could give out the award for unsung hero on the show, who would it be?
Wow. Immediately many, many candidates spring to mind. I
Mhm.
will just call out Charles Edwards, who
Mhm.
plays Celebrimbor, and he's sort of the heart of the season in terms of a protagonist, and he's telling a very, very complicated story. And it's a story of a sort of Faustian bargain. It's the, Victor Frankenstein, Promethean, he is the ambitious inventor whose reach is exceeding his grasp, and he just wants that extra few inches, and that's his undoing. Charlie Edwards is a Stradivarius. He's an actor who can do anything. He's funny, he charms you, but he's telling a story of his own undoing, and it's heartbreaking to watch. And I think among very, very strong competition, I think the work he did this season is really world class, and we're just very, very lucky to have been able to be there for be a very small part of it.
And I think, answering also specifically the unsung part of your because while I agree, I'm totally with Patrick that Charlie Edwards is everything Patrick just said. Actors often will get a lot of recognition because they're the face of the characters.
Sure.
But so leaning more into the unsung part of what you're saying, probably our production designer Christian Milstead, and then our VFX producer Jason Smith. Between the two of them, they hold a lot of the entire visual look of why Middle Earth looks the way that it does, why it looks so beautiful. And any single frame you could pause and just look and say, wow, that's just gorgeous. It's a painting. And each of them put so much, I mean, like day and night, and we'll get emails from Jason Smith at all hours of the evening with these. I mean, it's like the rantings of a crazy genius. I said with all love, like where like it'll be Fibonacci sequence numbers with, I mean, like his brain works in this just amazing multidisciplinary way where he gives you 75 different ways that he got to this different idea. And then ultimately it's about one frame or one part of one frame. And Middle Earth looks amazing largely because of the work of those two and their teams. And so many others who got the Gowers, Barry and Sarah
Barry and
Gower,
Sarah Gower who do the
prosthetics,
prosthetic
like,
work. Oh my God.
yeah.
I mean, their work is unbelievable. Watch, it's like close-ups of an orc face with slime and teeth and like the amount of like love and care. I mean, it is like artisanal prosthetic creature design makeup. It's like, I mean, yeah, I mean, we're really, but I was gonna go Charlotte Brandstrom,
Yep.
who's our director and one of our closest collaborators, and she's shaping the tone of single one of these storylines and every one of these performances, and has a heavy hand in the shape of the show and every sequence in it. And I mean, we're just really very lucky to work with such an incredible world-class team, and any number of them stick a hand in a hat and pull out a name,
Yes.
and they're one of the reasons the show is going exciting places.
Yeah. You guys are awesome.
Oh my God, thank you so much.
So great hanging out with you both today. It was such a pleasure.
Thank you. So do you have one? Do you want to ask one last question? I think we can.
Yes,
We can
yes. Do you have any
go
more?
ahead.
Gosh. Okay, probably just because we have to wait so long for season 3. Is there anything you can, I don't know, keep me and other fans just holding
All we
on
can say
to?
is we're working on it. We're very excited, and that's it.
We're,
That's
we're,
it.
we're,
Yeah.
we're we're prepping it and we love it. We think it's going to like continue the trajectory that the show has been on.
Ah, I can't wait. I really can't wait. You guys are so awesome.
Very fun of you.
That's-
It's lovely
So
meeting
much.
you.
You
Cheers.
too.